What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy. Welcome back to our Bible study. This time around, for our Bible study, we've got Exodus 15. So, last time, essentially, the people of Israel got out of Egypt, and, despite Pharaoh's army chasing after them, they managed to cross the Red Sea on dry ground, and then God brought the water back down, and it swept away the armies of Egypt. So they're officially totally in the clear from Egypt now. So anyway, that's kind of where we pick things up here, and that's definitely crucial context to know regarding this stuff and why they would be singing a song of praise to God. But let's just see what it says here, and then we'll kind of, dig in and get into a little more detail. So, here we go. Exodus 15. Then Moses and the people of Israel sang this song to the Lord. I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. He has hurled both horse and rider into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my song. He has given me victory. This is my God, and I will praise him, my father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a warrior. Yahweh is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and army he has hurled into the sea. The finest of Pharaoh's officers are drowned in the Red Sea. The deep waters gushed over them. They sank to the bottom like a stone. So, again, context being, why they would sing to God for glorious triumph because of what he did with Egypt's army and all that. But yeah, so they're essentially praising him for what he did there, and it even kind of gives you some, description of what just happened. But also, when it says then, it's saying, shortly after God delivered them from Pharaoh's army, they sang this song. Also, footnote for Yahweh is probably just going to say it's a transliteration of the Hebrew, which is sometimes rendered Jehovah. In this translation, it is usually rendered the Lord. Yeah. That's not a new thing. Also, the Red Sea also could read Sea of Reeds. So anyway, the people of Israel generally are just thankful to God for saving them. Verse 6. Your right hand, O Lord, is glorious in power. Your right hand, O Lord, smashes the enemy. In the greatness of your majesty, you overthrow those who rise against you. You unleash your blazing fury. It consumes them like straw. At the blast of your breath, the waters piled up. The surging waters stood straight like a wall. In the heart of the sea, the deep waters became hard. Also, real quick, backtracking. Note that the text is laid out a little bit differently, and while it says this is a song, I mean, it's difficult to know, what kind of song exactly this might have been. It could have been somewhat close to, something you would hear with, various instruments and voices and having a particular tempo and whatnot. Some songs that you'll find in the Bible may have also originally been more like kind of almost chants, you might say. Think sort of like, stereotypical monk type person who's, swinging the incense back and forth and doing this whole chanting song thingamajig. So, I mean, it could be either or, but, you know, either way, it was, you know, a some celebration, some praise to God for what he had done just before. And especially when you have repetitious things like that, I mean, that, you know, certain lines like that you might see repeated in songs even today. And the rhyme, if this went back to the original Hebrew, there would maybe be some sort of rhyme scheme in here. But, you know, this is an English translation of the Hebrew or something like that. And, you know, rhymes don't always come across very well when trying to translate things like that. But anyway, yeah, so the first part was more so praising God for what he did. The second part is kind of a general description of just God's overall attitude, demeanor, actions. Yeah, this second part here is almost a little bit more general than the first one, because the first one was very much talking about, you know, Pharaoh's chariots being thrown into the sea, and I mean, this one talked a little bit about it, you know, where the waters are standing straight like a wall, but some of these lines in here talk more, you know, just about God's character traits and different things like that. Anyway, okay. Let's get moving along with this here a bit. So, verse 9. The enemy boasted, I will chase them and catch up with them. I will plunder them and consume them. I will flash my sword. My powerful hand will destroy them. But you blew with your breath, and the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you among the gods, O Lord? Glorious in holiness, awesome in splendor, performing great wonders. You raised your right hand, and the earth swallowed our enemies. I almost said you were there, which, tomato, tomato in this situation. But, so it, like, obviously, I don't know if this would really need to be said, but just because, you know, the Israelites were themselves monotheistic doesn't mean that they were oblivious to other people's deities that they worshipped. So I don't know if this is necessarily them acknowledging that those other little g gods are real or even have any kind of power. I mean, this is asking, you know, who is like you among the gods, is pretty much them saying outright that there is no equal among the deities of the world. None of them have the same kind of power as the Lord. So, verse 13. With your unfailing love, you lead the people you have redeemed. In your might, you guide them to your sacred home. The peoples hear and tremble. Anguish grips those who live in Philistia. The leaders of Edom are terrified. The nobles of Moab tremble. All who live in Canaan melt away. Terror and dread fall upon them. The power of your arm makes them lifeless as stone, until your people pass by, O Lord, until the people you purchased pass by. You will bring them in and plant them on your own mountain, the place, O Lord, reserved for your own dwelling, the sanctuary, O Lord, that your hands have established. The Lord will reign forever and ever. So, it's interesting that they make all these comments when God was kind of worried about leading his people through Philistia. I mean, I think that was what it said, that he was concerned the Philistines would end up fighting them and that they would turn back to Egypt. But that doesn't necessarily make this false. It's just like, God has his own way of doing things. And if God so wishes to, make certain people groups terrified, or to just, make them leave his chosen people alone, then God will do that. There are other things that will happen later on that make the whole going around Philistia thing relevant, and, I'm trying not to get ahead of myself on that, though. As far as bringing the people in and planting them on his mountain, I mean, I guess God did say to Moses that he would bring the people back to the same place where Moses saw the burning bush, that same mountain that was referred to as the mountain of God in some cases. All right, so verse 19, moving along. When Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and charioteers rushed into the sea, the Lord brought the water crashing down on them. But the people of Israel had walked through the middle of the sea on dry ground. Okay, real quick, that sounds almost like it's supposed to be part of this previous thing, but it's not included in there. That might be one of those things where it's like, just the translators in this case decided to go a particular way with it, because Hebrew, at least ancient Hebrew, did not have punctuation like this. Anyway, verse 20. Then Miriam the prophet, Aaron's sister, took a tambourine and led all the women as they played their tambourines and danced. And Miriam sang this song. Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. He has hurled both horse and rider into the sea. Okay, wasn't that part of what was said earlier? Kind of, but not quite. Slightly different wording. This might have been something that got kind of repeated a bit more, maybe. And, because sometimes you get songs or versions of songs or different things that, are created to mark a certain occasion, and then you end up getting sort of shorter, more abbreviated versions of those. I mean, come on. I think in this day and age with meme culture, we're all too familiar with abbreviating and shortening our references to things. I also find it interesting that it says Miriam the prophet. I mean, this is, of course, probably written in hindsight after all this took place. And then, by the time this was written, maybe Miriam was more known for prophecy. But this is, I think, the first mention of that. So, anyway, just found that interesting because I hadn't seen it before in this reading through the Bible. All right, so then verse 22. Then Moses led the people of Israel away from the Red Sea, and they moved out into the desert of Shur. They traveled in this desert for 3 days without finding any water. When they came to the oasis of Marah, the water was too bitter to drink, so they called the place Marah, which means bitter. Was that not also... Or maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. One of the women somewhere in the Bible winds up going by this name because of certain things that either do or don't happen to her, really. I think it ends up being because of not being able to have a child when she wants one, or something along those lines. But just saying, note that name for future reference. All right, verse 24. Then the people complained and turned against Moses. "What are we going to drink?" they demanded. So Moses cried out to the Lord for help, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. Moses threw it into the water, and this made the water good to drink. It was there at Marah that the Lord set before them the following decree as a standard to test their faithfulness to him. He said, "If you will listen carefully to the voice of the Lord your God, and do what is right in his sight, obeying his commands and keeping all his decrees, then I will not make you suffer any of the diseases I sent on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you." After leaving Marah, the Israelites traveled on to the oasis of Elim, where they found 12 springs and 70 palm trees. They camped there beside the water. Alright, so now we get kind of a little more information on where their travels took them as they left Egypt and went into the wilderness, diverting away from Philistia and all that. But, so the first place they come to is an oasis in the midst of the wilderness, but the water's bitter. They wonder what they're going to do. God tells Moses to throw a certain piece of wood into the water, and that makes it okay to drink somehow. And then they leave there and travel on further. It was this part right here I was trying to kind of wrap some thoughts around. I guess this is maybe just sort of a precursor to other things that are to come, and God giving them sort of an initial, like, all right, you see all this stuff that happened in Egypt. If you follow me, you'll be fine and safe. But if you do things that I don't like, or that are just generally wrong, then that stuff that happened to the Egyptians, some of that's going to happen to you too. So it's a little bit of almost a covenant-ish thing going on, where God makes a promise that it's like, all right, if you follow me, I'll bless you in this way. But if you don't, here's what's going to happen. Anyway, I guess that about wraps it up for my thoughts on that chapter. All right, so that does it for Exodus 15. Celebration time, mostly. But also we got a little more info on kind of where the Israelites went after they left Egypt, and, their first little bit of venturing into the wilderness. So yeah, that kind of does it for the chapter. Not too much more to talk about with it. So, as always, like the video if you enjoyed it, share it with others if you want them to see. Make sure you subscribe to my channel to see more of my videos. Click the bell to get updates when the new ones come out. Look down in the description as well for info on other social media pages and how to find and follow those. And of course, leave comments down below with any thoughts that you have. So yeah, that's it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you for the next one. But until then, stay cool, people.